Hey everyone, it's Mike. Today is, today is Sunday, January the 22nd, 2017. Hope you're all doing well, and I hope that you're adjusting well to the changes that have been in the air. I don't know about you, but I watched the inauguration. I have mixed feelings about it, as I'm sure you do. Some people's feelings, I'm sure, are more mixed than others. For the most part, I'm hopeful. I think there's a lot of positive things that he can do, but I also have deep concerns about this man's mouth. He can really say some things that are not only offensive, but divisive, and could potentially get us either into a war. One sentence from him could get us into a war, could collapse the dollar or the stock market or the economy. I was listening to a commentator not too long ago talking about his first press conference as a as the president-elect, and I apologize, my throat has still got a tickle from this cold. Now this commentator was saying that during that press conference, he talked about the pharmaceutical industry and how they're getting away with murder, and we're going to address that. And yeah, there are issues with the pharmaceutical industry, and there needs to be some reform there. It needs to be looked at and dealt with. But I think the way he worded that, because he worded that so strongly, within an hour, the pharmaceutical sector took a hit. It plummeted. So, one sentence from him, if that can do that to a whole sector of the stock market, it could do that conceivably to the entire stock market, to the economy, to the U.S. dollar, to international relations, and conceivably even get us into a war. So that concerns me deeply. And while his message during his inaugural speech, his message certainly resonated with me. I believed everything he said to be true. But he certainly came out swinging. That was a bold message. I think he probably, if it were me, I might have tried to say those same things, and it's not me, and it never will be me, but I would have tried to say those things in maybe a more tactful way, and with a more softer tone and a little more inclusive. But I think he was right on a lot of his things about the economy, and there are parts of this country that have just been ignored, namely middle and rural America. The urban elites, liberal urban elites, whatever you want to call that crowd, not terribly concerned about rural and middle America, condescend to us, and it's a very divisive thing. It's either them or us, and they've been in charge for a long time, and they don't like that the tables have turned and things are going to be a little different. They can't handle that. And they're flipping out, as we can see, with all of the riots and everything. And I get that they're upset with that. I was not upset with President Obama, either the first time around or the second. I've been unhappy with that for 8 years. I feel like he's done a lot of damage to the Constitution and to rights of lawful gun owners and a whole host of other things, to the economy with all this stimulus that has only created a stock market bubble. None of that is real. That's all. That whole thing has the potential to burst and crash. Hopefully, with what Trump is going to do to make a more business-friendly environment, hopefully we'll head that off at the pass and maybe avoid a stock market collapse, or if it happens, maybe not be as intense or last as long. Now, one of the other things that this has really exposed is some of the flaws of political correctness. And I like that he's not political correct. We need to kind of go in a different direction now. I'm not completely against political correctness. I think it had good intentions to start with, but it's just gone off the rails. And it's exposing the flaws of it. Political correctness has become almost like a radicalized religion, where as long as you're preaching to the faithful and preaching the party line, everything's going to be okay. But one word out of line from that, and it's like sacrilege or I have an alternate word for sacrilege. I call it sacrilege. I like to say sacrilege. It's just fun to say. It's like heresy. If you're not, towing the PC line, heaven for fucking bid. My God. So maybe that will get looked at and addressed. Because, like I said, I'm all for, sensitivity and, equity for all, and fair and equal treatment. And I don't think anyone should be. We should all have equal rights and equal dignity, and all races, genders, religions, sexual orientation, and all that stuff. I'm all for that stuff, but the way this is going is just insane. And I'll give you an example. With this whole political correctness thing, it's just about, we don't want to offend this particular point of view, and it excludes a lot of other point of views, which I'll get to in a minute. But as long as you're not offending that, saying something that's offensive to a certain point of view, everything's okay. But the second you say one thing that's contrary to that point of view, their whole world comes apart, and they can't handle it. And I'm trying to look at both sides of that, and I think I get both sides of that. No one likes to be offended. I don't like to be offended. It is upsetting to be offended when someone says something that's offensive to you. But we need to be able to still function and not have our whole world come apart because someone says something offensive. And it is. I'm not minimizing that it's the upsetting it can be to hear something that's offensive. I get upset. I don't like it. And we have choices when something is offensive to us. We can challenge it, we can bite our tongue, we can walk away, or some combination thereof. Every situation is different, and every context is different. Every social scenario is different. Sometimes it makes sense to challenge it. Sometimes it makes sense just to bite your tongue. There are a lot of things at stake and a lot of things at play. And that's a dance we all have to learn to do. So I don't think it's healthy or productive to create this mindset where we're going to come unglued if something contrary to our beliefs is spoken. And of course, Trump fans the flames of that because he's not politically correct, and some of his rhetoric can be very volatile, and that concerns me deeply, as I've said. So we've got kind of the makings of a perfect storm here. Speaking of perfect storms, this is not the first perfect storm. It's one of many. I'm going to rewind the clock to I don't know when, but let's say 1950. There was a time in America where, as long as you were white, Christian, and heterosexual, that's kind of the way things were and the way things went. And anyone who wasn't white, Christian, or heterosexual, well, you were at the very least a second-class citizen, and sometimes worse than that. Sometimes you were a pariah. And that's not right. That's not okay. So, during the 60s, we think of the tumultuous 60s with all of these civil rights activities that were going on. A lot of that was addressed and negotiated. And it was a very unpleasant time. A very unpleasant time with all the unrest and the riots and just a lot of interpersonal conflict. It was a very tumultuous and difficult time. It was awful. But thankfully, there's good that came from it. A lot of progress was made in the area of civil rights. And I believe that we are in such an era again, where we're still negotiating a lot of those things. And it is difficult, and it is unpleasant, and it's testing a lot of our patience and beliefs and outlooks. And I think the social landscape is something that's constantly changing. To cling to a reality that's this one-dimensional white Christian heterosexual paradigm, I don't think is right. Now, I say that, but I also say I don't think anyone needs to feel ashamed for feeling white, Christian, or heterosexual. I certainly don't. I'm not Christian. I grew up Christian, but I grew up in that paradigm. I understand that paradigm. Because I don't think, for the most part, I don't think those people have bad intentions then or now, but the societal norms were what they are, even though they weren't right. I don't think majority of those people were evil, hateful people. I think most folks look back on that and say, yeah, I see that now and I feel bad about it. I feel bad about it. And I'm all for trying to address it. Does that mean that this is now a hostile PC takeover of everyone who's not white, Christian, or heterosexual? Have I been saying heterosexual the whole time? I don't know. That's what I mean to be saying. I don't think that's right either. That's just as bad as what came before. I don't think that's right. And it's starting to feel like that's the case, but it is a negotiation period right now. So it's going to feel like that, and I think it's uncomfortable for everyone. Because a lot of things that negotiated, there's a lot of things at stake, a lot of things in play, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be unpleasant. And the social landscape is going to look different when this is finished. But back to this either or thing, where it's, the traditional paradigm or this quote unquote new paradigm, where it's one or the other. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. You see this coming, of course, what I'm about to say. I'm a libertarian. I believe in personal sovereignty. I think there's room for all of those beliefs, all those point of views, and everyone to be able to kind of do their thing and be their thing and fulfill their life and their destiny and goals and dreams and whatever they've got, is however they see fit. As long as they're responsible, compassionate, law-abiding people, it's not my business. That doesn't mean that I don't see things and I'm not uncomfortable. But if I believe in personal sovereignty, I have to be able to shrug that off, as long as they're not victimizing other people or being irresponsible or doing unlawful things or putting anyone in danger. But hear anyone talking about personal sovereignty, I don't know if that's even a term. That's just a term I came up with and that I like to use. As far as if other people are using it or if anyone else has coined that phrase, I don't even know. But that's kind of coming from the libertarian mindset. So this negotiation is ugly, and it's very divisive. Very divisive. Our society is very divided right now, and that concerns me deeply. And there are a lot of different kind of factions and factors at play with that. You get racial things, you get religious things, you get the battle of the sexes, you get kind of this gender orientation thing that's going on, and there's battles going on in each of those areas. Negotiations are going on in each of those areas, and the thing that troubles me is that it has to be one, or there's this sense that it's us or you. We're going to win or you're going to win. I don't agree with that, and I don't like that as an end result or an end goal with that. I don't agree with that. So I'd like to see something that's more about personal sovereignty, like there's going to be a personal sovereignty movement because I said so. But that's if it were up to me, or if I really had that kind of input where I could influence, more than 5 or 6 people. That's kind of where I'd like to see it go if it were up to me. One of the things that pleases me, and this may or may not please you, and it's fine however you stand with this, but my really passionate issue is gun rights for lawful people. That's the left, the gun control crowd has made multiple attempts to try to renegotiate the paradigm on that, and it's a non-starter. It's just not going anywhere, and that pleases me, because gun control doesn't address any of the problems that it's trying to. It doesn't deliver on any of its promises. All it does is criminalize lawful gun owners. If you want to do something about violent crime, make it about violent crime. Make it about prohibited people, prohibited behaviors, and get past this fucked up political correctness thing where we can't call a spade a spade. We have to be able to call a spade a spade. There's a saying out there that says nothing changes until it becomes what it is. Let me tell you what I'm getting at with this. As of 2013, if you look at the statistics, I think it was the Center for Disease Control, 80% of firearm-related homicides were gang-related. Not one single word from the political correct community or the gun control community about addressing gang violence. How fucked up is that? How fucking fucked up is that? We can't even name the problem. How can we deal with the problem if we can't even name it? 80% of firearm-related homicides. You want to do something about gun violence, that's where you start. And there's plenty that can be done. And I getting back to the inaugural speech by President Trump, he fucking named that spade. He called it a spade. He said, we're going to address crime and gangs and drugs. Those are all things that are unacceptable in our society. It doesn't matter what the race or gender or religion or sexual orientation of the people who are participating in those things. None of it is acceptable. We can't give people a pass because of their race or their gender or anything else or their religion. That's fucking idiotic. Oh, we'll just blame it on the lawful gun owners. We'll just come down on them. We'll blame them and shame them. We'll demonize them and stigmatize them, treat them like second-class citizens. So that people freak out at the very mention or the hearing that you're a lawful gun owner. And I'll draw a parallel with that. I've seen, and you probably have seen this too, 20 or 30 years ago in the workplace when there's a homosexual in the workplace and that is discovered, and all the ignorant, hateful, evil ways that people react to that. It's a natural reaction, but it's people do horrible things as part of that reaction. Thankfully, that has improved enormously, but that very same phenomenon is happening for lawful gun owners in the workplace. I've had it happen when I used to work in the Boston area. I've had that happen a couple of times. It's a fairly liberal area, and have people come unglued when they find out I'm a lawful gun owner. Either just turn their back and walk away from me mid-conversation, or do that same kind of freak out, the gossip and, kind of the whole gossip game and everything, gossip and rumor game that happens. That's pretty fucked up. It's no more acceptable, and no less a diversity issue than it is for homosexuals or for anyone else. I'm sure it happens for Islamic people in the workplace. I don't think it's fair or accurate or productive to take any demographic, any one demographic, whether it's a race or a religion or lawful gun owners or anything else, and say, oh, those are all bad people. Mischaracterize an entire group of people like that. That's very problematic and really damaging and dangerous. And we'll never fucking learn as a society because there's been a collective conversation about that for decades, and we've made progress on that, but history keeps repeating itself. We've made progress, with race and religion and sexual orientation on that, but it's worse than ever with lawful gun owners and Islamic people. The more things change, the more they stay the same. We take one step forward, 2 steps back. Human nature sucks, man. We're stuck with human nature. We're all human. We all have flaws, and we all have our limitations. But I think that's all I have for today. I want to try to wrap this up on a hopeful note, and I just thought of how I'm going to do that. I think we need to give President Trump a chance. As I've discussed, he has his pros and his cons, but one of his big pros is something I've heard, that you've heard me talk about in the past. I like to do a lot of personal growth stuff. I listen to a lot of personal growth speakers, and his name is brought up frequently in the community of people who are trying to talk about manifestation, how to manifest your dreams and desires and goals and all of that. And he's kind of a rock star in that area. Set aside whatever you think about his personality or his politics, he is like King Kong when it comes to manifesting his desires. I can't think of another high profile person that I can think of who's better at that. Look at the things he's done in his life. I mean, he gets things done. This fucking guy gets things done like nobody else. So the thing that I am optimistic with and encouraged about is that I hope that he can deliver on his promises to stimulate and reinvigorate the economy and create jobs, try to restore balance with Middle America, because that's gotten way out of whack and needs to be addressed. Middle and rural America is just a forgotten joke in the urban elite point of view. And the rest, well, we'll see how it goes. But hopefully he can do good things for the economy, and that's needed. That's needed. So here's to manifestation. Here's to our new president, hopefully hoping that he can manifest some good things for us. And here's to each and every one of us, you, me, and everyone else, that we can manifest our own dreams and goals and desires and make positive things happen in our lives. So, on that positive note, I thank you for listening, and have yourself a great Sunday.